Hello everyone, Ryan from Oakland Ghosts, and today I'm going to be giving you an overview of the Dreadbox NYX, which I actually built myself from a DIY kit. You can watch that video on my channel. I'll post a little link up here. It was a pretty easy build, pretty straightforward. I definitely had a little bit of frustration points, but yeah, if you want to watch that and see what the build's like, it's a pretty beginner build, and at the end of it you basically get a very highly sought after synth for less than half what it would retail for. Definitely recommend it, but they are limited. Dreadbox has a habit of making X number of something, and once it's gone, it's gone. So if it seems like an interesting synth and something that you might want to build, I would get on it right away. By the way, I'm not being paid by Dreadbox or NYX, or there's no promotion. I just bought it because it sounded like a fun project and I love the sound of the synth. So let's take a look at it. Let's give an overview. It's a pretty complex synth, I'm not gonna lie, and I do not understand everything about it. This is my first time turning it on since we built it, but I'm gonna try my best to explain it as I understand it, and we'll explore it a little bit. The NYX is a mono synth, although you do have the ability to go paraphonic, which means you can play two notes at once. Basically, it's a 2-oscillator synth, so oscillator 1 would play the low note, oscillator 2 would play the high note. So you could do two notes at once. It's not full polyphony because it's a single voice architecture, but you can get some pretty cool stuff doing it that way. Or of course you can just play it as a mono synth with two beefy oscillators, which is also an option. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set our MIDI, and I actually love this. I have a couple other semi-modular synths, and setting the MIDI channel usually requires a lot of menu diving. That's kind of a pain in the butt, but this one has a kind of genius thing that I haven't seen on another synth, and I kind of wish it was on every piece of hardware analog synth to set your MIDI, because it's awesome. So basically when it's in Omni, it receives every channel of MIDI. So you select your MIDI channel, find the one you want. Let's see, I'm going to set mine to 5 because that's where I'd like it. And let's turn up an oscillator to see if we can actually hear anything. Cool. And once you've pushed a couple buttons and you've got it on a channel that you've decided you liked, you just go down there and now it's locked. Now it's locked to channel 5 unless I decide I want to change it another time. It's that simple. I don't have to do any menu diving, which is freaking radical. All right, so let's explore the synth a little bit. Now the synth is kind of crazy. So like I said, there's two oscillators. There's only a single tuning for the oscillator. There's only a single master tune. However, with the second oscillator, you do have a D tune so that you can offset that. Each one has 3 different octaves. So a low, a medium, a high, and they're offset from each other as well. For oscillator 1, you have either a triangle or a square. And with the square, you have pulsed width modulation on this slider. And you also have glide control, which is your portamento. And what's kind of interesting is the oscillators actually have individual portamento glide controls. So you can have one that's thumping and another one that's gliding, which is interesting. I've never seen that on a synth before. Really cool kind of feature. So we've got this one, and like I said, you have 3 different octaves. You got, this is right and medium, that's low, and high. Pretty simple. And now why don't we bring in a second oscillator. So you can see that the octaves, this one goes, oscillator 1 goes a little bit deeper. This one goes a little bit higher. So right now oscillator 2 is an octave up on it if I wanted them to be even. And if I wanted to go even higher, I could go up even higher. And then like I said, the master tune controls the pitch of both oscillators. And so the only way that you can get them to be offset, is by using the D tune, which is this guy here. And it sounds to me like it's got about an octave each way. Bring it into parity there. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So you could still, have them be, a third apart or a fifth apart or whatever you like, if that's what you're going for. That is achievable via the D tune knob. So now here's where we get kind of interesting. So it has a single VCA, and each of these, I guess they call them modulators. They got mod 1, mod 2, mod 3. So mod 3 is just on the VCA, and it basically acts as both, or I should say and or. It acts as and or a ADSR, or so an envelope, or an LFO, depending on how you set it up. So right now I am using it as an ADSR, and when it's in that mode, the rise is the attack. Right? And the fall is going to act as, right now it's basically acting as a release, because if I have it in hold, then I'm getting sustain. And then when I let go of the button, this is dictating how long the release time is, right? And it's a pretty long release. There's really short. And that's pretty long. So you can get pretty long with it, which is pretty awesome. And if you took it off of hold, now you're getting it's acting as a decay. So it doesn't matter how long I hold the keys. This becomes your decay. So if you wanted to get super plucky stuff, you could do that. And then lastly, what you can do is you can actually set it to an LFO. And then these control the rate. And you kind of got to experiment with it, because I don't know exactly what does what. It sounds like if the fall is short, you get faster. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So there you go. That's how and all of the modulators work that way. But how you route those modulators gets a little crazy, even without visiting the patch bay, which is, it's a pretty simple patch bay, but you can definitely reroute things through there. But there's a myriad of ways that you can organize this just without even touching the patch bay, which is both confusing and kind of crazy. So let's kind of dive into that for a minute. So again, both of these modulators work the same way. Right now, let's look at what our routing is. So this is our VCO routing, and standardly, it goes from the oscillators, it goes into the filter. The filter is actually two filters. There's two separate filters. They're both negative 12 dB ladder filters, but if you work them parallel, then you basically get a 24 dB, and you can, of course, you can work them parallel, you can work them in series, you can work it so that one oscillator goes to one filter and the other goes to the other filter. I mean, there's just like all these crazy ways. I'm going to try to explain it. So if it's normal, both oscillators are going to filter 1 and then following into filter 2, right? And let's just take a listen to the filter actually for a second, because it's pretty radical. So I just have it all the way open right now. Let's turn it down. And this is the resonance. The resonance and the cutoff is the same for both filters. Oh man, it's got a nice sweep to it though, doesn't it? Let's go full resonance. Looks like you can get a little audio rate down there. Getting a growl down there. That is just a nasty sounding filter, man. That's awesome. So yeah, so the resonance and the cutoff is the same for both. And then the post is basically an offset, kind of similar to the way the D-tone works for oscillator 2. This is an offset for filter 2. You can hear how it's getting some different harmonics by the way it's going. I usually kind of, for now, I'm just going to keep it halfway. Dude, that sounds frickin' killer though, doesn't it? All right. So yeah, so when it's normal routing, both oscillators are going to oscillator 1. If you switch this to split, now the oscillator 1 is routed to filter 1 and oscillator 2 is routed to filter to. And the way that you control those various filters is you can actually use these guys. But let's finish what we're saying here. So let's see. Without using the modulators, it's kind of hard to tell what the effect is. So if we go to half, now both oscillators are actually going to filter 2. And then you can also just bypass the filter altogether and go straight to the VCA. So those are the different options that you have up here. And then what your filter is doing is also interchangeable. So you have a low pass filter, and when it's up there, it's set to low pass, and they're playing in series. So filter 1 is set to low pass, and it's going in series with filter 2, which is also set to low pass. So it'll go through filter 1 and then through filter 2 when you're up here. When you're down here, it's going to be the high pass filter, and it's going to be similar. So filter 1 is set to high pass, and it's in series with filter 2, and it's going to go from filter 1 to filter 2, both of which are going to be high pass filters. We can take a listen to what those sound like, I guess. Why not? So it's both a low pass or a high pass filter, depending on how you want to do it, which is pretty radical. Okay. And then if we go to even, both filters are actually set to low pass, but they're in parallel. So they're not going one after another, they're going at the same time. And then the third, if it's odd, filter 1 is set to low pass and filter 2 is set to high pass. So you probably have to find a crazy, which is frickin' bonkers. Oh, that's very cool. I like that. Awesome. So, I mean, like, again, as I said, you can see right off the bat that there's just a freaking ton of different ways that you can route both the signal and the way the filters are working before I've even touched the patch bay. And on top of that, we haven't even got to the modulation, which is also kind of tricky. The mod routing is kind of crazy too. So when it's in single, modulator 1 is going to control both filters, right? So let's see. So it's similar, like it works the same way, right? So this is the attack. If I have it in hold, it's acting as sustain, and this would be my release. And this is the level of how much of it it's doing that. Right? So I'm getting automatically getting that knob twist with the presses. And now you could also, of course, change it to an LFO. Pretty awesome. All right. So that's when we're set in single. When we're set in dual, both modulators 1 and 2 control both filters. So you would be able to, for example, maybe have one set to an LFO, one set to an envelope, something like that. Pretty straightforward. When it's split, if we switch this down to split, what we're getting is modulator 1 controls filter 1 and modulator 2 controls filter 2. Let's see what we can get with that. Let's set this one, let's set them both to LFOs. Now let's turn on modulator 2, and I'm going to put this one on LFO 2. Just so you can hear the difference. So you can hear modulator 1 is going pretty fast, right? And that's going on the first filter. And then the second filter is going a little bit slower. Pretty freaking awesome. And then if it's set to odd, modulator 1 controls both filters and modulator 2 only controls filter 2. So you can get multiple modulation on filter 2, which is okay. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Let's see what we get. Anyway, super cool stuff, right? As you can see, like I said, it takes a lot of fiddling around to figure out what your happy spot is. And I have not, especially with the LFOs. I mean, obviously you have the LEDs to give you a sense of what the modulators are doing, but I haven't quite figured out which way does what. Oh, one other thing I forgot. We also have vibrato on these. So this will set the level, and this is the rate. Pretty rad. Very cool. Very cool. The last thing that this thing features, and this is kind of besides the patch bay, of course, it does have noise, which is something that's hidden behind the patch bay, so you can add noise if you want. I think it's a mix between kind of white noise and pink noise. I haven't listened to it yet. And the last thing that it features is a reverb. So all of the Dreadbox synths feature some kind of crazy effects because Dreadbox does both effects and synths. This one has a pretty famous reverb. It's an infinite reverb. So it's, I don't know. Well, you know what, just listen to it. So let's just add something in there. You'll see what I mean. I'll start low. It is mono, but I don't mind that so much. It's kind of nice because it'll bring it up. So the time is, this is the pre-delay. The higher we go, the more high character we kind of get on there. But because it's an infinite delay, it gets just massive. And it basically turns, it kind of reminds me of Valhalla's Supermassive, although it is mono. But you can go all the way up to infinite. Clipping out just doing that. I mean, so you can see how this could be a pretty awesome ambient box. Right? That's pretty. And I'm not even modulating anything, right? Let's just do like a super long fall off and I mean, that's beautiful. I don't even care if it's mono because so many of my other effects are going to be stereo anyway. This will probably push it right up in the middle. And you know what? If I throw a stereo delay on it, it won't matter. I mean, that is just beautiful. Beautiful. So there you go. There's my overview of the NYX and how the signal routings can work. Like I said, you can set it up in almost any way that you want. And I will emphasize, this is my first time playing it, so I'm kind of getting caught up in... Oh, God, that is just... Come on. That's massive. It's so beautiful. And I really like the dual filter. It's just got such a nice sound to it. It's so growly. Huh. I cannot wait to start writing something with this. All right, so yeah, once again, this is the Dreadbox NYX. I made it myself out of a DIY kit. I think it cost around 250 or 270 euros, and then plus tax, of course. But, you know, basically you're effectively for about the same price as the Moog Mavis. You're getting something that is, I think, sounds much better and is probably a little more versatile. This thing normally retails, the original NYX, like I said, this is a reissue. The original NYX was only available for like a year, and it's pretty highly sought after and hard to find. This is a reissue of that first version. I think it retailed, even when it came out new, it was probably around 600. So building it yourself, if you can get a hold of one of those DIY kits, is less than half what it retails for. And you can, I mean, that just sounds amazing. Highly recommended it. It was a fun build. It took less than an hour. I will post a link once again, just so you can watch if you want to see what the build was all about. But there's the NYX. This is the new addition to my arsenal, and I cannot wait to get further into it. In the next video, I'm gonna do just a sound exploration, so probably almost no talking whatsoever. I'm just gonna play with this and see what kind of sounds I can get. If this was interesting to you, if the NYX seems interesting, if you want to see it featured in some of my other videos, consider subscribing. We're knocking on the door to 1,000 subscribers, and that would just be an awesome milestone to cross. So thanks for joining me. I'm gonna go start playing this thing. All right, guys, until next time.